made our views known, how opposed we are to fur farming in itself. And we're looking at a time when so many countries in Europe have banned fur farming, and the latest being the Netherlands, which was the third largest fur producer after China and Denmark, and we see them getting rid of fur farming. We also see it phasing out in other countries, which I think could have been a sensible approach here. I also at that stage discussed the way in which the animals are gassed, and I think so the second part of this is the welfare of the mink. Presuming that, as you say, you want greater regulation, so fur farming is not going to be banned in this bill. So I do think there is a need for much stronger controls of the way in which the mink they're held, first of all, and the way in which they are gassed. I think there are serious issues for the environment, which I pointed out at committee stage, that fur has this higher impact in respect of 17 of the 18 environmental themes, including climate change and toxic emissions. And the climate change impact of 1 kilogram of mink fur is 5 times greater than that of the highest scoring textile wool, owing to the feeding requirements and the nitrous oxide emissions from mink manure. So, as I said, there's two issues. I would love to see fur farming banned. I don't know why we have to have fur farming in this day and age. I think we could follow the good example of other countries in Europe and, if not banning it now, at least look at phasing it out. And in the meantime then, more concern for the welfare of the mink while they're being kept in captivity, and also the way in which they are gassed. And we do know that there is the other issue of mink escaping into and damaging the bird life in the particular areas.
Antara?
Yeah, no, look, we did have a good discussion on this in committee, and while I'm trying to accommodate people's concerns, there are some things that we just, you want fur farming banned. What I'm proposing to do is to introduce a new code of conduct, a new inspection regime, a new licensing regime, to try and reassure people that within the boundaries of farming, if you like, that the welfare of the animals is protected, and that goes for things like the density of animal numbers in cages, the way in which they are killed, and I will be bringing that code before committee, and we will be able to discuss it again. But I can't agree with you that we should simply just ban it. We will look at a tight code of conduct and a new licensing regime, and if we have to introduce regulations, well then so be it. Let's wait and see how that code works out. But this is a practice that is relatively small in Ireland. Actually, I think there's only 4 or 5 fur farms in Ireland. And I want to ensure that the fur farming that does take place here is of the highest standard. And if at some point in the future we need to review that because of welfare standards or concerns, well then we can do it. But I don't want. We've made it a policy decision not to do that at this stage, but instead to try and focus on ensuring that welfare concerns are properly adhered to.
Thank you. Deputy Clare Daly.
Thanks, Ceann Comhairle, and I'd just like to speak in support of Deputy O'Sullivan's amendment. I appreciate the points that the Minister makes, that he is going to look at this issue in the form of a code of conduct, but I suppose the problem for us is that what we're presently dealing with is an animal health and welfare bill where this practice, which is inherently cruel and inhumane, is going to be allowed to be continued. And we are I suppose, expected to buy into a promise of regulation and improvements. And I do know, given the thorough knowledge that the Minister has of his brief, that I'm sure we will be given regulations, and it will be an improvement on what exists now. But the problem for us is that we've no input into that process. Yes, we do have an input into this bill, and I think in that sense the idea of moving the amendment is an appropriate one, because it is a small practice in Ireland. It isn't of any major significance. Often the argument is put forward that there's huge economic considerations with the need to practice this barbarity. That doesn't exist in Ireland. You're talking about 5 registered mink farms, relatively small amount, and yet in 2006 you were talking about 170,000 mink being killed in Ireland, and 300 foxes and so on. So there are issues around the type of regulations that you'll bring in. In Germany, there's substantial improvements. While they haven't banned the practice, They have upgraded significantly, I suppose, the quality of life of mink. There is a contradiction because they don't have much quality of life, but at least they're being kept in better cages. They're given some form of, toys, better foods, bans on wire mesh floors and so on, and that these regulations will be. We have no such guarantees in relation to the issues here or in terms of the manner in which they will be killed. So I think it is my preference for an outright ban, I have to say. I think that is the only thing that's compatible with animal health and welfare, because the idea of just a practice of keeping and rearing animals just for their fur, there's no logical basis to this whatsoever. And while you did say previously that there's currently no foxes being farmed in Ireland for their fur, there's nothing in the legislation which prevents this from happening in the future. So I think we need more, and I think the amendment gives us more, and that's why I support Deputy O'Sullivan in moving it.